Josh here with Ben and Bass Fishing, and we are going to do a quick oil change on a 60 horse Mercury EFI 4-stroke. And I'm going to show you the tools that I use. So first thing I do is I get all my tools that I know I'm going to use. I've done this before, so it should be pretty easy. And I'm going to show you that stuff right now. A couple of things is I like to warm my motor up. And I do that with the muffs, and I put that on the side of the motor with the garden hose on, start the motor up, run for a little bit. That helps the oil heat up and make it more viscous to drain out of the motor. I have an 18mm wrench, socket, extension, ratchet, 3/8 drive. I'm also doing a spark plug change today, so I have a spark plug size here and here. I'm not sure which one it is yet. I have the correct oil, so I buy Mercury stuff because they make the motor and they know what kind of oil to use. I have the correct oil filter for this model, and I contacted the dealer and they told me what model to buy. I have a spark plug gapping tool to change the gap in the spark plug, which would be this piece right here. I have the 4 of the correct spark plugs. Also, the dealer told me. Also, I have the owner's manual for this motor. And some of that general information I'll show you is right there. So it's the same for the 40, 50, and 60 horsepower motors. So if you have a Mercury and this is a 2012 boat model-ish year, so that should be good. And I'm going to use that to change the oil. So like the oil capacity, that's the kind of stuff I need. And how to gap the spark plugs, which is also in this, which is a 40 thousandths gap, or 40 thousandths of an inch, or 1mm, depending where you're in. You can also use feeler gauges if you don't have one of these spark plug tools. They're actually really cheap, so you should pick up one anyways. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to thread this onto my garden hose here. And I'm going to put that on the engine and warm that engine up for 3 or 4 minutes. We're going to make sure that's on there nice and tight and it's covering up the vent holes on either side, or the intake water line holes. And then we're going to go turn the faucet on. Turn that on, and then we are going to turn the engine on. It's going to be a lot louder than what's in the lake. That's okay. And we're going to make sure it does this. Make sure water's coming out of here. That means the engine's actually cooling. And the reason that's so loud is normally your muffler is underwater. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cover off. Pull that little lever. Pull the cover off, set that aside. And I'm going to take that off. And that's going to let air flow into the system to let the oil out. So that'll make the oil flow a little bit faster. I can also do it here. So this is the fill hole. The other thing I forgot to tell you is you need one of these things. So this is a oil drain pan. I actually have a glove on the end of that to prevent that from leaking all over the place because they're fairly cheap. Find these at AutoZone, Walmart, that kind of stuff. And I got water on it by accident. Just take this, open the vent hole, otherwise you'll get a big puddle of oil on there and it'll overfill and it's not fun. Drag that underneath that right there. Now we're going to crack that open. So we're just going to loosen that up with our wrench. And then we're going to loosen it up by hand. And no matter what you do, you might get oil on the ground here, so actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to put something underneath here real quick. So I just put a rag underneath there real quick because I know I'm going to spill oil everywhere. It actually comes out a lot further than I normally predict. Loosen that up. Pull that out real quick. Now we're going to drain that all out. And so the two major factors for engine failure or any sort of mechanical failure are two. One is lack of lubrication, and the other one is contamination. So getting water in your oil or getting metal particles in your oil are not good, so that's contamination. Lack of lubrication would be losing all your oil, which you don't want also. So make sure all your seals are good. You want to make sure that this little seal right here, is intact. Make sure you clean that all the way off. Usually there's dirt around that area on the boat. Just collects dirt. So make sure you clean that all off. Then don't put it back in yet. Set that aside. Don't lose it. The oil's still draining out. I'm going to loosen the oil filter. So now there's even more oil coming out. So make sure you don't get any oil on the ground there. So this should be hand tight, should be relatively loose. If it's not, you can use a strap wrench or a pair of channel locks. And normally I can't get it with my hands, so grab a pair of channel locks, grab and hold that thing lightly, and just give that a spin counterclockwise here. And so the issue with this particular section is, and I'll show you, so as soon as I loosen that oil filter, all the oil is going to go down on the bottom there into Never Never Land. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bunch of rags down there and make sure that there's no oil getting down there that I don't need to. Stuff all that in there. That. Loosen that even more. Loosen it quickly. And pull it off quick. Put that in your oil pan. Put even more rags in there. Let that seep out for a little bit longer. You can see right in there. So that really shouldn't drip that much. Most of that oil went back down through the system and out. So I'm going to take those rags out. Throw them in the oil pan, and I'm going to try to get all that rest of that oil out of there that made it around the rags here. So the other thing you want to do is you want to make sure that that surface right there, that shiny surface around the edge, is nice and clean. So just get that with a rag. Should be fairly clean. And the next thing you want to do is put the new oil filter on. So I'm going to go show you how to do that. So you take that out of the box. Stand that upright. You're going to open up the new oil. Poke the cap out. I'm actually going to put my finger right in the oil there. Just kind of productive. And I'm going to smear oil on this edge. So it's a rubber on, you don't want dry rubber on metal, so that doesn't always work. So take new oil, not old oil. You know the old oil's all over the place now. Take that, smear that on there. Just like that. Just a thin coating. Take that and hand tighten this on there, so should go right back on. Grab a hold of that like that. Tighten that back up. Put that screw back in there, but I also want to clean all of this oil all off. That way I can not make a nice rainbow slick on the lake when I put it back in. and better for the environment. And then I can tell if I have any oil leaks after the fact. So I'm going to clean that all up real quick. And you can use soap and water on the outside surfaces, or you can just use paper towel, which I'm going to use. So I'll put that back in there. By hand. And then I'm going to use the wrench to tighten that up. And I just want to tighten that quite a bit, and that's the only one place the oil can leak out, and there's a little more oil leaking out there, so I'm going to clean that all up too. So the next step is to fill this with oil, and you want to double check your manual for how much oil to put in there. I know mine is, I think, 3 liters. Engine oil capacity is 3 liters, or 3 US quarts, which doesn't make any sense. And my things come in 1 gallon or 3.8 liters, so 3.78. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour 1 into one of my old containers, level it off to 3, and what I use for a guide is the actual gauge on the side here. So do that real quick. One thing I forgot for the supply list would be a funnel, so that helps pour the oil into the motor. Now that I have 3 liters exactly, hope you guys can see that, I can take the funnel out of here, and I'm going to put it in the motor part here. I'm actually going to tip this motor up, which should make it easier to funnel the oil in. Give that a double check, give that a double check. So make sure all your gaskets are good, otherwise this will be a waste because you lose oil out everywhere. So that's there. I got 3 liters, so this is going to take all of this oil. Now it just takes time, so you're going to pour that in there slowly. So now that that's all poured in there, I can lower the motor back down. Get to the last drop there. Clean out the old oil on that thing. Don't forget to put this back. Tighten that up, hand tight. Lock that back down again. Like that. Make sure that's good. Make sure that's good. Nothing's leaking out of there. That's also good. Now if you're just doing the oil change, you can stop right here. Then you'd be all set. Put the cover back on and run. It says to idle the motor for another 5 minutes or so. So put the boot back on, turn the water back on, turn the engine back on, warm it up, make sure there's no leaks. If there is, address that. It would probably be either there or there for leaks, or you forgot one of the 2 plugs on. And restart from there if you need to. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over the spark plug part. So what I'm going to do now is go over the spark plug part, and this is a little tricky. So a lot of people don't gap the plugs. They don't come pre-gapped. Some of them do, some of them don't, as far as I know. So make sure you buy the right plugs. Usually there's a Champion model and there's a NGK model, so this calls for Champion, which is fine. So I'm going to take the plug out of the package. I'm going to show you guys how to do that real quick. So my manual in the beginning there said it was 40 thousandths, and I'll show you that again. Right there are 40 thousandths or 1 millimeter. And so this little thing, it's a little dirty, has a bunch of different increments on it. So one of these is 40 right here. So I'm going to take each one of these plugs and I'm going to stick that under there. So right now it's too tiny, I can't feed that in there. So this comes with a little tool, little crowbar kind of on the end of it. I'm going to grab it right there and I'm going to actually open up that gap. So that's crucial to make sure all of these are the same, right? All of them the same, the engine will perform, all 4 cylinders will perform the same way. So that's key. I'm going to bend that out a little bit more so it didn't open it enough. And you want to kind of fit that just in there, just a little bit more. And the other thing we want to do is, so this little ring right here looks like a washer, but it actually crushes. So it's actually 2 pieces, it's 1 piece of metal that's formed over twice. And we're going to kind of, when we're tightening this, you're going to crush that piece. So you're going to tighten it finger tight, and then you're going to go, I think, a quarter turn or a little bit more, and you'll kind of feel it bottom out. Just be very careful when you're putting that in. So now that all my plugs are gapped, we're going to pay attention to these numbers right here. So cylinder 1, 2 is in there, 3 and 4, and they're actually numbered on both ends. So there's actually a little steel stamp in there. See that number 1 right there? That's crucial. So 1, 2, 3, 4, but the coil packs are labeled differently. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and the wires are labeled. So 1 goes to 1, 2 goes to 2, and so forth, but they don't go in this order. So make sure you put that in the right order when you put it back. So I'm going to pull all these plug wires off, take 1 plug out at a time, put back a plug. It's easier that way. So I might need a universal joint for my spark plug wrench. So nothing about a spark plug wrench, so this is actually the right one. This is a 5/8, it's got a little rubber piece in there. Hopefully you guys can see that. That actually grabs the plug, helps it come out easier. So I'll show you guys how I'm doing that here in a second. So like I said, I'm going to remove 1 plug at a time. And don't just yank on the wire itself, yank on the boot as much as you can. Take the right tool in there. This is the easy one. And take that out. Take the wrench off. So my plugs look really good. We have a little bit of a gray tinge to them. It's the correct color. You can actually look up a color chart on online. So I'm going to show you guys a new plug and an old plug. So I'll take it out of the wrench here. So old plug, new plug. So see how the 2 rings are different? So one's kind of flat and one's kind of rounded. That's the part we're going to crush right at the end there. So we're not going to really wrench on it and like put a breaker bar on it. Just we're going to tighten that and then tighten it a little bit more to crush that down. Use that little black rubber piece again. Stick that in there just like that. And we're going to not use a wrench on the other end. And the other thing that's really easy to mess up is cross-threading this. So in the angle that you took it out, trying to remember that. That's kind of tricky sometimes. But once you get it started, it should be easy. Put your wrench back on. Put it in forward. And then it's basically hand tight right there. Go a little bit more and you can actually feel that crushing and it'll get tight. And then you're good. Take that off. Put that boot back on. Then you're good. That's cylinder number 1. So now that those are all set, we can put the boot back on. Just like that. Make sure it seats on both sides. Just like that. Turn the water back on. And you can turn the engine back on, and just a quick check one more time. That's closed, that's closed. Spark plugs are in the correct order. So 2 goes to 2, 1 goes to 1, 4 goes to 4, 3 goes to 3. So it seems to be running good. We'll let that run for a little bit, and then we'll actually clean up a little bit. So with the used oil that's in there, you can take it to Walmart. Most Walmarts, AutoZone, Advanced Auto, they'll take your used oil back, dispose of the rest of the stuff in your trash appropriate for your town ordinance or your state or whatever you need to do. So now that that's all warmed up and we have no leaks, so I check all the spots that I touched, right? Oil filter reached in there, nothing greasy in there. This is still good, nice and clean. There's no shine coming out of the bottom there. Nothing was hissing or leaking in here, so on the spark plugs. So now I can put the motor cowling back on. So YouTubers, if you like this video and you found it helpful, leave comments below. Any questions, thoughts, concerns, anything I missed, leave it in the comments below, let me know. Subscribe to my channel. I'll have more videos about the maintenance of this motor, this boat, trailer, all the above later throughout the summer. Since I maintain all this stuff myself, saves you a lot of money. Through the maintenance on your boat, it'll save you time on the lake.